Alright guys, back in the shop. Another little tidbit for welding. First part of the video, I figured to touch on some plug welds, which is basically welding holes up with a backer behind it. In the second part of the video, I touch on some things that could contaminate your welds and what it does to your weld, what to look for, how to determine whether it needs to be ground out and re-welded or not, depending on how much porosity is in your weld. Give you a good look at porosity and show you what welding inspectors will look for the most part. So stick around. There's different ways to plug weld. We'll touch on a couple different ways and touch on some contaminations. Alright, so a little bit about plug welds. If you're working on cars, 8mm hole is what most manufacturers are going to want you to use. I have two different size hole punches. I have an 8mm, which is what this is, and I have a 6mm. The 6mm I use when I'm just making stuff around the house. I'll use an 8mm sometimes, but an 8mm is usually kind of big for some of the smaller stuff I'm making around the house. So a plug weld is kind of like a stitch weld, I guess you'd say, when you're welding two seams together or two pieces of metal together. You could run a little stitch underneath where the two pieces come together, or you can punch holes and plug weld. So let's see if I can draw a nice little circle. This is the hole you're going to weld up. This is obviously a massive hole. This is not a very good circle. Let's say this is an 8mm plug weld. A couple different ways you can do it. Some guys will start on the outside edge and they'll come around and they'll weld up and then hit the middle. And some guys will do the exact opposite. They'll start in the middle, heat it up, and then come around and connect the outside edge. I don't know which way is technically the correct way of doing it. I know there's going to be somebody out there that says, oh, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. My opinion, like all other welding opinions I have, whatever way works best for you, where you get good penetration on both pieces of metal, is going to be the way I'm going to tell you to weld. If your weld looks good in the end, it's got to be a good weld. If it's holding strong, it's not falling apart, do it that way. Don't just go with the way somebody tells you to do it. If your welds aren't turning out good that way, try it a different way. The way I usually do it is I'll usually start in the middle and I'll do a little circle and hit the outside edge. That way I know I've heated up that back piece of metal and I've made contact with that back piece of metal first. You can always tell when you've made contact with the top piece of metal because the weld touches it. My opinion is if you start on the edge and you go in, you may not make a lot of connection on that back piece of metal. Whereas if you start in the middle and work your way out, you might make a better connection. So let's get the welder out, get these pieces clamped up, plug weld 3 times and see how they turn out. I'll plug weld 2 different ways, on the outside going in, inside going out. Third one I might leave blank for a minute. Hang on just a second. Alright, so the first one, we'll start off on the outside edge and we'll work our way into the middle. We'll see how that one turns out. The middle one, we'll start out in the middle and circle the outside edges. see what the difference looks like. They look about the same from the top, about the same heat pattern. See how the heat comes out? About the same. The height is about the same. Penetration. If I can get a good angle on this. See, that bottom one is the middle one. And you can see how it got a little bit more penetration there. If I can hang on to these. It's got a little bit more penetration. The top one's still flat. So both these welds they're good welds. One's a little bit stronger than the other, in my opinion, because it's got that burn through. The first one I did, where I started out on the outside edge and worked my way in, it's completely flat on the back. You can't feel any kind of penetration. One where I started in the middle and worked my way out, it's got more penetration. But that's the way I like to weld, so that's the way I've always done it. It's the way I do it all the time. I practice it all the time. Of course it's going to be better that way for me. For you, it might be exactly the opposite. And if you have your welder turned up hotter, and you start in the outside edge and work your way in, you're going to get more penetration. The heat effect zone, the rainbow around it, you don't want that to get too big. So the hotter you have your welder turned up, the more heat's going to come out here. When you're working on cars, that heat effect zone matters because of some of the higher strength steels that you're working with. So you want that rainbow area to be as small as possible, but still have that 8mm hole that you're welding up. A lot of the newer cars, they're getting away from MIG welding in general. They want you to just spot weld. Use particular spot welders so the heat effect zone stays really, really small. Or they'll have special rivets to rivet a car back together. Alright, so I was going to try and figure out something to put in that plug weld. Found something I think will work a little better for a demonstration. Two nice rusty washers. What I'll do is I'll just plug weld that hole up right there, right in the middle. Should give us some nice contamination from the rust and whatever paint's still on there or whatever was on there originally. What you doing, dog? Huh? Come here. Come here. You're a good dog. You want to go away though. You want sparks. Go down over there. Go lay down. Go lay down. You don't want sparks. Alright, let's fire this welder up. Get some good contamination in here. Well, that doesn't seem to be too bad. It's not exactly what I was looking for. Maybe we'll have to get some metal and put some paint on it or something. We'll figure something out. Alright, so we're going to try round 2 here. The rusty washers didn't turn out as bad as I want them to. So we've got some more of these plates, but I didn't clean the oily film off of it, and I didn't clean the paint or whatever they have on it, the E-coat on the metal. I'm going to weld through all of that. I'm going to see what it turns out like. Hopefully this works. This really isn't working out like I want it to, guys. I'm going to throw some more paint on that middle hole. I'm going to paint it black. Alright, so now we have unclean metal and oil on it, the E-coat, and black paint. I'm going to get some corrosion on one of these welds. This is just killing me. Alright. Maybe we'll try some weld through primer. That's stuff that iCard tells you you're supposed to use. Corrosion inhibiting compounds. Sprayed on there. Anytime I've used this stuff working on a car, I get the crappiest looking welds you ever seen. Let's see if I can get a crappy weld here. See that hole right there? Big pocket? That's porosity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind down these 3 welds. And we're going to see what each one looks like in the middle. I'm going to grind them flat. Hang on just a minute, I'll be right back. Alright, so there's the first weld. Not too bad, looks like I might have missed an edge. Let me get to the second weld. Get a good angle on that. See a little porosity in there. A little spot right there. A hole in the weld. That's what you don't want to see. The third weld. See even more porosity. You got a big hole here. Got 4 little holes here. And 3 little holes over here. Now this is minimal porosity. This last one right here. It's definitely a porous weld, but it's not what I was trying to do. What I was trying to do was get a really porous weld, just full of craters and air pockets, gas pockets, nastiness. I don't know why I can't do it right now. It only happens when you really don't want it to happen. You get up in a tight area, you want to produce a clean, flat weld so you don't have to get in there with a grinder. That's when it's going to happen. So I'm going to see if I can find something around here that I can get a really porous weld, something I can get a big mountain to kind of grow out of. Sometimes when you get done welding, a little finger will grow out of it. And you'll grind it off and just be a big vacant hole in there. And that's the point where you have to grind it flat, drill it out, and re-weld it. If it gets much more porous than what's right here, you need to redo it. This is kind of borderline. You should probably drill it out a little bit and re-weld it. Get rid of some of those gas pockets there. What we doing, puppy dog? Huh? What we doing, puppy dog? Alright. So this is the third video in the set. And so far we've covered butt welds, overlap welds, angle welds, and plug welds. The 4 main welds. They've all been down flat on a table. Easy to get to, easy to do. Once you get comfortable welding them horizontal, just on a table, you want to find a way to rig them up so they're vertical, like you're welding on a wall. You have to make a stand, get a couple clamps to clamp it to it, do the butt weld, the overlap weld, nice angle weld, and then your plug welds. When you get comfortable doing that, you want to go up over your head so you're welding underneath. That's a part that gets kind of, well, nobody likes to do it. You get sparks falling on you, weld blows out and you got hot embers falling all over you. It's when you really want to have all your safety gear on. You want to have a leather vest, or a leather jacket with some sleeves to protect your arms. Some good gauntlet gloves that kind of cover that so the sparks don't roll down your sleeve. Wear your safety gear definitely when you're doing the overhead welds. It's not hot. It's not fun getting a hot ember down the back of your shirt or up your sleeve, burning your arm the whole way. So practice them, get them good on the table, vertical, and up overhead. Next video, I'll probably go over some more of the thick to thin kind of stuff. I'll figure out some more things to throw in there. We'll get into some thicker metal, some 3-pass. So stick in there, stick with it. It's, for some people it comes really easy. I know I make it look easy a lot of times. I have a hard time getting porosity in my weld because I don't know why, because I'm trying, I guess. I'm not a perfect welder though by any means, and I've been welding since I was 13. It didn't come really quick and natural to me. I've just done it a lot. Some people will catch on real quick and be down the road flying, weld anything. If that's not you, just stick with it. It'll come to you. You'll get it. You'll get the hang of it. So it's a lot of fun for me. There's nothing I'd rather do than build stuff, make stuff out of metal. Don't forget to wear your safety equipment, guys. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed. That way the next video that comes out, you get that notification. Hit the notification tab. Hit the like button. Get this video out there. I appreciate you guys watching. Leave a comment if there's something you want to see welded. Something you have a question on with welding. Leave it in the comment section. Until then, take it easy, have fun, and go make something.